Hey, is this thing recording over there? Oh, ho, ho, oh, yes, Hawks. Woo. I'm a little bit out of practice, guys. But hey, we're bringing the energy up. So, you know what? I'm back for a third episode this year, and nobody has canceled me. This is amazing and monumental. And what makes it monumental today is that we are going to be talking about the draft, more specifically how the Hawks are drafting this year. And you know that I know nothing about college hoops. So there's only one person I can trust to bring in for these things. And boy, did I have to go through a lot to get him. Had to put a bounty on him to hopefully find him. But hey, we brought Patrick out of retirement. And on the other line with me is going to be the main host of the show today, quite frankly. Patrick, welcome back. Welcome out of retirement. Get back on here. What's going on, man?
What's up, Josh? You know, you leave for a while, people get married, things change.
That did happen.
Guys used to hate, now wear the Hawks jersey. There's all kinds of crazy things going on. So you have brought me out of hiding. The Red Rev is back, and I'm ready to talk about the draft.
Red Rev, that's what I'm here to talk about, man. First of all, how have you been? Where have you been? And I don't know, so many emotions right now. So many getting to me.
Yeah, well, I teach at West Lawn Middle School in Tuscaloosa and coach track and kind of fell off the wayside because I couldn't watch as much basketball as I wanted due to the busyness of all that, and kids and all those things. But life is settling back in again, and about to get out of school here and get cranked up about the draft. So I've been watching Hawks, just not saying a whole lot. So we can settle into whatever we need to talk about because I got a whole lot left to say because I've been quiet for a long time.
Now, everybody knows who's listening to the podcast. Before me and Patrick were just trying to plan out the show real quick, I just wanted to give him a quick rundown. Patrick mentioned to me that he's a track coach, and he's doing one of the events I used to do when I was in high school, triple jump. And I blame that event for screwing up my ankles, Patrick. I'm just going to let you know that right now.
Well, it's probably if it was on the old concrete tracks.
Yeah.
They're all spongy now.
Yeah, I blame him for screwing up my ankles, trying to get that initial leap and coming down on the same foot, for so many years. But I think the best part about all this is that I can refer to you as coach now that whenever I ask you about these things.
Yeah, I'm Coach Rev now.
Coach Rev. I am so excited. I am so happy to have you back. And I know that people miss you and they love you, but mostly miss you and want everything to know. So, Patrick, I know it's been a while, so let's just get this out of the way, everybody. Patrick, what did you think of the 2016-2017 Atlanta Hawks? Go!
Well, I think it was a reminder to me that being a fan of a team is supposed to be fun. And watching people melt down all year about every little thing that happened made me just like cling to that even more, because you can't talk about the team without the fact that I'll still not get over that Al's gone and one of my least favorite players of all time is in his place. But if I'm going to say it, I thought Dwight overall was a pleasant surprise. I still don't like the move, but I thought he played much better than I expected. It's sad that we have to compliment him for successfully passing the ball to people better than he used to. But which, by the way, Al Horford's on pace to have more assists in the playoffs than Dwight had the whole season. But I digress. It's hard to watch a player like Bazemore who you can't help but cheer for. He's such a great personality and he seems to be a proud Hawk, loves the fans, and watching him struggle was hard. But, I thought overall it was a good season. And, we're still keeping this playoff roll going. I'm someone that's not a fan of, I think you keep trying to win. I don't think Atlanta's the kind of city that can tolerate not trying to win. A long tank job would just result in worse attendance than we already have. So, I thought there was a lot to like. I think, hey, I'm the draft guy, right? We finally got a freaking draft right. So that's nice. I mean,
Yeah.
at least we finally picked two dudes. And what's cool is it's two guys I wanted. So, and it worked out. So I think Bembry's going to be good. Prince has already kind of exceeded expectations, I think. So I think there's a lot to like. I think it's hard to see how we bring Hardaway and Millsap back, but we'll see. Frankly, I would rather see us bring Millsap back, and probably would have made more sense to offer a certain guy last year for less money than we'll have to give Paul. But again, I digress. I'll get over it one day. But Dennis had flashes, and I still think there's a lot of hope for Dennis. I think it really hurt Dennis losing out. And I think as the year went on, he looked a lot better. And that's one reason why I'd like to see Millsap hang around. For me, I'm just like, at this point, let's just keep Paul, sign him, and just try to get younger and younger around him. And, maybe you get lucky and you pull a Kawhi Leonard out of the draft or something. So if you actually look, half the All-Stars we had this year weren't lottery picks. So, there's a lot of places these guys are coming from. And, outside of a once-in-generation player like LeBron coming along, there's no guarantees. So I'm excited. I'm still a happy Hawks fan. It was the only two NBA jerseys I've ever owned are Kevin Johnson with the Suns and Kyle Korver. So that's been hard.
Kyle
seeing
Korver.
Kyle play wear it. By the way, when people like to, lower the 2015 team as if it wasn't very talented.
Yeah.
In the second round of the playoffs, I'm pretty sure our entire starting lineup was still playing. And I look around and I'm like, oh, yeah, Al Horford, he's still playing. Oh, yeah, Kyle Korver, he's still playing. I think even Shelvin Mack was making some appearances in the second round. So,
Damari was in the
I'm always like,
round.
I still miss that team.
Yeah.
So I still, that team's never really gotten the justice that they deserve for how good they were, because after Tabo went down, they just fell apart. But I love the team. I think it took me a while to grow into this team. It took me a while to get over harsh feelings toward certain players, but I think overall it's good. And I think Bazemore showed some ability late in the year to be like an emergency point guard. You never wanted to play the point, but you could carry him as your third guard if you have to. And I think before you saw him kind of as a 2-3, maybe he can be more of a 1-2. And if he can play next year the way he played the last 3 months, he's a $12 to $13 million player, and then that contract's not so bad. I think there's some hope with that. I just don't know. I don't know how you put Hardaway and Bazemore both on a team when neither one are really starters. I mean, they're really both borderline starters, and I don't know how you keep both of them on a roster. It doesn't work for me.
Get it out. Get the frustration out, because that's something I've been wondering the past year, or season.
Yeah, I just think. I mean, you've got Bembry. You got a chance to get another draft. I just don't see. I don't want to undervalue anything Hardaway did this year. I just don't see how you keep both of them, because neither one of them. I mean, they're either the fifth starter or a 6th, 7th man. So it just doesn't make much sense.
Well, that's the Hawks. That's the Hawks. We love them. We really love them, and sometimes we don't love them as much, but we still love them. So you were talking about, you mentioned Hardaway, keep him. Well, that's a debate for another day. Keep Hardaway, if we should let him go. Millsap, keep him, let him go. You mentioned Al Horford. Tell me, can't remember if it was you that said this or somebody else, but you're looking at Al Horford now in the playoffs as if he's like an ex-girlfriend who left you for
yeah.
What was that exact quote?
You were still in love, but he had to leave you because your family was crazy.
Yeah.
But she just finally had enough and was like, I can't tolerate your family. And so he was gone, and then they're like, oh man, I still love him. And I mean, I'm one that'll forever believe that he would have gone down as the second greatest Hawk, and that he should have retired, and he probably could add a statue. And will continue to believe that Al messed up. But
yes,
you know what? He looks really good in Boston, as hard as it is to accept. And he's had an amazing – you realize he would have been the best three-point shooter on our team this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of depressing. I've been kind of up and down on the whole tank group. I was pro tank, but then had I known how the news from management came out recently, I may have changed. I think I would have changed my mind, but you know what? Who knows? I'm a terrible fantasy football owner because I try to trade people every week. So who cares what I think?
Right,
So
right. Well, I mean,
yeah,
that's the thing about tanking. Like, I get it. Like, there's a time to tank, but as a draft person, people
yeah,
really don't realize. Like, do you realize how many teams tank, and then you go look at the list of players they draft over 3 years, and they're all terrible? Like,
yeah.
the draft is still a crapshoot. Even, and the more I learn about the draft, and the more I gain from it, the more I realize how lucky you have to be. So, I mean, I don't think there's a player in this draft that I'm just like definitely a star. I think there's guys that have a really good chance to be, but they all have holes. Like, I wouldn't want to tank down just there's not an Anthony Davis in this draft. There might be someone that ends up being better than him, who knows? But there's not a Carl Towns. There's not a um, Kyrie Irving or John. I don't see that level with these guys. They all have something that's a blatant hole, including the fact, just an interesting stat that only affect the Hawks. 3 of the top 10 guys projected in this draft to go early, the one and dones, couldn't get their team in the NCAA tournament.
Hmm.
Like,
Huh. As I scratch my chin.
so are they really top 10 if they can't even like you should be good enough if you're an NBA star to get your team into the NCAA tournament.
Everybody, this is why I brought Patrick on. I love these takes. So, Patrick, as I mentioned, with Millsap and Hardaway, those are conveniently two positions that we may have to look to fill. And where else can you do it besides the first opportunity, which is the NBA draft? So, let's get into a couple of guys that you shared with me, and you're just going to give me your quick thoughts and every single detailed analysis down to their shoe size and how many socks they wear when they play. So, number one on the list, this is a guy I believe you're really excited about, and you're just going to have to educate me on him. But John Collins from Wake Forest, is it?
Yeah, and what's interesting about Collins is he's probably a name most people haven't heard of. And frankly, I didn't really hear of him until ACC play started this year, and he's a sophomore. Um, Frankly, Atlanta would be lucky if he failed. Most people have him like, I don't think anybody has him in the lottery, but he's kind of in that like outside the lottery range. So if he failed a 19, there's also a kid named Patton at and Creighton that a lot of people kind of like for the Hawks as a freshman. But I like Collins because he he's just kind of a he fits Atlanta's system well. He's 6'10", 225. He's kind of a what you call a little bit of a T-Rex in that he's got a 6'8" wingspan, so he doesn't have that like length that everyone's craving. But he put up a 36.3 player efficiency rating, which is the highest rating of a major conference player in the last decade. And
That's hot.
the four players behind him in the last decade in player efficiency rating for major conferences are Kelly Olynyk, Anthony Davis, Frank Kaminsky, and DeMarcus Cousins. So, worst case, you're thinking this guy's probably an NBA player. Some other, if you go to the top 25 PER rankings the last 10 years, these are some of the names you'll find: C.J. McCollum, Kenneth Faried, Mike Muscala, Doug McDermott. I mean, there's no guarantees, but I've typically used the PER for small players that no one's talking about. If you start looking at those guys, most of them have performed better in the NBA than the spot they were drafted in. So, I think Patton's I think Patton's probably a lottery player. He's also he doesn't even turn 20, even though he's a sophomore in college. He doesn't turn 20 until the NBA season, after the NBA season begins. So you're getting the youth. He's actually younger than 4 of the one and done players.
John Collins.
So
This is John
yeah,
Collins,
John
right?
Collins.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, and if anybody watched him play in ACC, he averaged 19 points, almost 10 rebounds per game in the perceived best conference in the country, which I think it was, even though they disappointed a little bit in March. But anyway, he's just a really smart player. He's still got a lot of room to grow. He moves real well with off the ball. He needs to add some weight. He's kind of to me like a skinny David West. But David West wasn't as big as he is in the league when he was in
Yeah.
college. So, but he's got the ability. He's got the ability to extend his game out a little bit over time. I think he didn't take any threes in college, but he's a really good mid-range shooter and he makes his free throws. So,
Okay.
I think he's a nice player that would fit Atlanta's system. He's a reasonably good passer. He can develop that. Seems to be a hardworking kid, and he comes in with like the least hype in the world of the first round players. Like most people don't even know who he is. And look what I just said. He's literally the highest PER player in the last decade in college basketball.
So if we get this power forward right here, we're not going to have an Adrian Payne situation where we're going to trade him off to the Timberwolves.
It's so funny you say that because I actually think about Adrian Payne a little bit with a player we're going to talk about later in Caleb Swanigan. But Payne, because Patton, what made Payne special, or we hope would make him special, would be that he can make 3-pointers and he made all his free throws. And when you do both those things, you usually are translated to the next level.
Yeah.
Well, Payne's never done that. Like it's just never happened for him. He's never been able to make that deep ball in the NBA. I mean, I remember comparing him to Robert Horry, after he was drafted or before he was drafted, and it completely changes you when you can't make the three. And he never had Horry's athleticism, so I wouldn't put Collins in that category. I mean, honestly, he's probably the best analysis is he's a more athletic, younger Mike Muscala. I mean, he's 3 years younger than Muscala was when he came out of college, and he's more athletic than Muscala. But I think he's got a lot to offer that Muscala had to offer. Only you're getting at someone who's younger with a higher ceiling.
Huh. Well then, very intriguing. And again, everybody, the Hawks will be picking at 19. And you're hoping just by pure luck that he can fall to Atlanta at 19.
Yeah, I mean, it would. He's somewhere between 15 and 20 on most boards, and boards are going to change. We'll know a lot more as time approaches. But right now, of all the players I look at, and no one, we don't even know who our general manager is, so it's hard to make predictions about what we'll do. But I do think knowing Bud, whoever the general manager is, Bud's going to kind of frown on having a. We just typically don't bring in one and done type guys. So I think he makes a lot of sense.
You know what's going to happen, Patrick? The Hawks are going to change things up, and they're going to bring in Joe Dumars to be our GM.
Oh, I just can't even. Like,
so I don't know if you know or not. There's kind of a feud on the Peachtree Hoops website with me. I guess I'm being too mean or whatever, but I basically told my dislike for Joe Dumars, but unfortunately, I did it after Cinco de Mayo, so I wasn't in.
Was Dumars responsible for taking Darko over Carmelo? Was that Dumars?
Carmelo, Bosch, Wade, even Kirk Heinrich. Yeah. Would you rather have Kirk Heinrich?
You pretty much couldn't screw up that pick except for now. In his defense, everyone did love Darko. I didn't really know anything about Darko, but like to this day, that pick's such an impact. Like anytime I promote an international player, be like, he's just another Darko.
Yeah.
I remember with Porzingis because I was big on Porzingis, and everybody's like, just another Darko. And now I'm like, really? You wish we had Porzingis now? Because I bet you do.
Yeah. Well, I made a top 10 list last recording over the weekend. I recorded with Glenn, and I made a top 10 list. Going over the Dumars mistakes. That
was Rodney Stuckey. Did he sign Rodney Stuckey?
I believe.
Was that after he left? No, he Rodney Stuckey. Oh, he signed
Ben Gordon. Right after.
No, right but there was one worse than Charlie Villanueva.
That was. See, you're going down my list right now. That's number 4 on my list. That's number 4 on my list. But
Uh,
since you're questioning, number 2 was trading AI for Chauncey Billups. But if you remember that.
Trading AI for Chauncey Billups?
No, he traded away Chauncey Billups for AI.
For AI, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
we're
Well,
getting off.
that didn't really hurt anything though. They were both on the way down anyway. So, but
Uh,
the Villanueva Gordon summer pretty much ended the Pistons.
yeah, and of course he signed Josh Smith out of free agency. But anyway, we were getting off subject. You were talking about John Collins, saying you loved him. So let's move to the next guy that you did just previously mention that you might be a little bit afraid of. I don't know, but Caleb Swanigan from
Well, yeah,
Purdue.
I'm not afraid of him. It's just he does. There is some similarities of pain. Okay, so Caleb Swanigan, and again, I have to be a little careful here because I've liked Swanigan since he was 18. Let me just give a little bit of his background because I think part of the thing I try to do with drafts is understand the best I can from what I see, the way guys work, because that's important to me. Um,
Yeah,
he was well over 340 pounds at one point in high school.
that's a lot
Swanigan
of weight.
was okay. He started losing weight. He was probably about 300 pounds the first time I saw him play, and he was a commitment to Michigan State and Tom Izzo, and then flipped late with kind of Izzo's blessing. From what I understand, it wasn't an acrimonious thing. He was, it wasn't one of these where he just like pulled the rug out from under somebody, but he flipped to Purdue. And the thing about it that blew me away was when he was still a Michigan State commit, I saw him play, and he reminded me so much of like a hybrid of Zach Randolph and Draymond Green, who were both Spartans. And so, and I actually mentioned that in my article that's printed or coming out, depending on when we release this. But so I almost forget that he played for Purdue because he's always been a Michigan State guy in my head, and he's still at Purdue played like a Michigan State guy. But what's cool about him is he's down to 247. He's 6'9". The guy is basically like called Caleb Swanigan double machine on every television broadcast. And he clearly works at it. He has almost a 7'4" wingspan.
That's
Um,
large.
yeah. And so what's cool about him, and this is what I liked about Payne, but Swanigan's a better athlete than Payne was. But what I like about Swanigan is he's willing to get physical in the post. He's willing to work. He battles for rebounds. But you're talking about a guy that shot 45% from the 3-point line this year. And I think his shot is far smoother than some other bigs. So, he shot 45% from the 3-point line, 78% from the free throw line. That's usually the kind of thing you expect to at least. He's only got to shoot 35% from three, and he at least has to make big guys go out there. So he's a really intriguing prospect. 18.5 points a game, 12.5 rebounds. The challenge for him is he's not a great defender.
Okay, that's
But
what I was going to ask you.
he's a willing defender, doesn't have great feet, doesn't necessarily have great hands. Kind of reminds me of Julius Randle a little bit defensively, and that Randle
Ooh.
looks like a guy that should be able to defend, but for some reason he just doesn't really get it. I think Swanigan is a little ahead of that. People have Swanigan going late first, most even early second round. I'm comfortable with him as a late lottery pick. I just kind of have a disconnection with why he's not higher up. I think people are soured on the fact that he didn't have necessarily a great tournament. But here's also one of my favorite things about him and why I would love him in Atlanta. His last 26 games this year, he scored in double figures. And in only one of those did he take more shots than the points that he scored. So you're talking about a guy, like commonly we see guys that'll have 15 points on 16 shots. This guy doesn't have to be given the ball to score. He'll go find it. If you don't give him the ball, he'll just get the misses. Like he's not going to, he's a big guy who doesn't eat up space on the floor. And for a team like Atlanta that needs the physical player, I think of Paul that way. What makes Paul so special in some ways why he doesn't get recognized as a superstar is he doesn't need the basketball to affect the game. And Caleb, I think, is that way. And I think he's got the kind of, there's parts of him that reminds me of Paul Millsap at La Tech. Anyway, I just like him a lot. I would be okay taking him at 19. Dude, that's the guy that if we somehow got him at 31, you'll see the Red Rev going crazy on Twitter because I'll be excited.
I
So
love it when you go crazy on Twitter. That's the best. You make the best comments. Okay, so Caleb Swanigan. He's also a personal favorite of a couple of my friends. I have a buddy whose girlfriend goes to Purdue, so that's all I hear about. He made me watch every single game, and I was
well, that's a
impressed.
great team to watch. Had Vince Edwards at guard. They got the Isaac Hayes kids that's coming back, and Isaac Hayes. I mean, he's got the best name. Who knew that?
Wait, wait.
A white kid from Boaz named Isaac Hayes. That's just a dream.
There's a basketball player named Isaac Hayes. That's
At Purdue. Yeah, it's spelled Haas though, but he's a big tall white kid from Boaz, Alabama, and his name's Isaac Hayes. I just like the jokes are endless, but he'll be a prospect next year. He'll be a senior next year.
Okay.
But Vince Edwards, that Purdue team was a great team to watch, and actually let me offer something else here. I don't want to get in trouble with Purdue fans because it sounds like I'm just giving Izzo credit for a kid he didn't even coach. Matt Painter did a wonderful job with Swanigan and helping him advance his skills. And that ended up being even though I thought Michigan State would be such a great home for him, Purdue ended up being the perfect place for him to be. And he really has been one of the more joyful players to watch over the last 2 years. And again, I don't get why he's not a lottery pick. I mean, I don't want to have him in the top 10, but I don't know what you want in today's game. You got a big physical guy who can get rebounds and space the floor. I thought that's what people wanted. So
everybody, Coach Red has a lot to get out. He's telling us to watch Purdue basketball right now. This is exciting.
Hey, but don't stay in their dorms. They still have dorms with air conditioning. I've been there.
Oh, they don't have air conditioning?
They're an engineering school and they have dorms with no air conditioning. Some of them.
You know what? That reminds me of my dorms my first couple of years when I was at Hampton, Virginia. But that is another story for another time. And you sold me on a kid named Isaac Hayes. So moving on.
That's why I watch Purdue next year. You can watch Isaac Hayes.
Sold. So moving on to our third name. We mentioned Tim Hardaway Jr. and if he should come back or not. Who knows? That's another discussion for another time that, we're going to have on here. And I'm sure it's going to be talked about through the summer. But most of the news of a certain team in the NBA, most of the news is taken from this team was from a kid that kept tripping everybody. You familiar with this team? I think everybody
Grayson Allen.
I think everybody hates them. Yes, Grayson Allen. Well, he has a teammate named Luke Kennard that actually I kind of discovered during the tournament, and so did a couple others, at least Hawks fans on Twitter that, mention him. And I'm like, whoa, what about this guy? I hear he has the tools of what I understand, everything that I like. But go ahead and give me your thoughts on Luke Kennard.
Well, he's another kid that I have a history with as far as just watching as a prospect. I can't remember if it was the All-American, the McDonald's game or Nike, whatever game it was his senior year. I'm watching these commentators. They're talking about 10 or 11 guys and how good they are. And while they're talking about how great everyone is, there's this guard that keeps scoring all the points.
Yeah.
Who's not flashy, who's not. And I'm like, this kid keeps scoring. They're talking about everybody else. I think he ended up having like 22 points in the game. And it was Luke Kennard. And basically the perception of him all along has been he's going to be a really good, solid college player, but he won't be able to go to the next level. And finally this year, all of a sudden people realized, and granted, he was a much better player this year than his freshman year. But he's a really good player. And, let's go ahead and get to the stereotype out. He's a white kid, so everyone assumes he's not athletic. And so he gets the typical, he's a good athlete, not a great athlete, but he's also, like, if you look at him, he's well built. Like, he's strong, he's physical, and he can flat out shoot. Shot 45% from the three-point line this year, 44%. Yeah, and then he shot 86% from the free throw line. So that verifies. He passes what we call the 180 rule, which is when you shoot. If you take your field goal, 3-point, and free throw percentage together, and it's 180, like generally that's viewed as a guy who's just going to be able to shoot. And so he passes that test. He's 6'6". He's another T-Rex. He's got 6'5" wingspan. There's one thing I like about guys that short arms though that's not valued enough. If you actually look, most of the elite shooters, Kyle Korver being an exception because he's a long arm guy, but a lot of the elite shooters have short arms, and it makes their stroke more repeatable. Because just think about bench press. You got a longer way to go, right, with long arms.
Yes.
Like that's the only reason I can't lift 400 pounds, of course, because my arms are so long.
Yeah,
Um,
400 pounds.
yeah, not because of any other reason. Um, but JJ Redick, 6'5" with a 6'3" wingspan, has a very easily repeatable stroke. I think that's good. I think that actually helps guys like Kennard. Um,
Oh,
and so I think he's going to be a great shooter at the next level. I think he'll be able to help a team early shooting. The Hawks need shooting. He's going to be an average defender. He's still got a lot of growth there, but I thought that's one of the things he improved in most this year. He's got a little bit of kind of Nick Stauskas in his game in a positive way, not in the way he's become in the NBA, but in that Kennard's a pure two, but I think he can give you time as emergency point guard. And if there's one thing I kind of like to see Atlanta do is rather than draft a point guard in this draft where it's not very strong, unless you take a shot at like the 60th pick, I would like to see Atlanta get a guy that can handle the ball. And Kennard, like even maybe sort long term more so than Bazemore. I mean, Kennard. There's a video I've got of him in the article. Like he can handle the basketball and he can lead the fast break. So you could get a by with him playing point guard for 10 minutes if you need him to slide there. You wouldn't want him to play point guard long term because of defensive reasons. He's going to match up better with two guards. But anyway, he's an exciting player, and I think he'd be a good fit for Atlanta. And so for me, with the three guys we've talked about, any of those
yes.
three guys at 19 right now are the three guys that I'd go, yeah, okay, good job. That's what we should have done.
Well, you kind of sold me. And not you sold me. He's already sold me because I really like Kennard. And I'm just imagining him in Atlanta's system. And man, everything else about him, I'm high on, or at least
Oh, he
positive.
also the other thing about him is he averaged 5 rebounds a game, which for a 6'6" shooting guard that's supposedly not
That's a
athletic,
lot.
that's a
That's a
lot.
lot.
Yeah. And he
Yeah.
averages almost a block a game too, which is also a lot for a shooting guard.
I'm sold. Make him that's kind of the guy I was kind of looking at. Like, I don't know. John Collins and Caleb Swanigan had me excited prior, and somebody else on the list, but for a totally other reason. But Luke Kennard was the one I was kind of like, if the Hawks don't bring back Hardaway, because some teams can offer Hardaway a ton of money, and
Yeah.
we don't bring
Well,
him
I think
back.
here's the thing for me. Even if they did offer Hardaway, I think you still got room for Kennard. I mean, we've got a lot of spots to fill in the roster.
True.
I mean, Tabo's not going to be back most likely.
Very
So
true.
you got a lot of spots to fill, and if you don't carry a third point guard, then and you got Kennard and Bazemore that can fill that at times in an emergency situation. So, and if you look at draft value and need, I mean, he probably is the ideal. He's probably the most likely ideal fit at 19 right now.
Now, can you imagine him falling to 19? Because it sounds like, at least
Yeah, I
from
mean,
what I've seen.
that's I've not seen him. I haven't seen anybody put him in the lottery. So if nobody's put him in the lottery, and I don't know, I haven't looked at, I think Draft Express has proven to have been the most accurate over the years in picking what people are. So I
Draft
think last I
Express.
saw him,
Okay.
actually, they had him at 18. Yeah, he's at 18 right now. So
Okay.
actually, Draft Express right now has us taking Terrence Ferguson at 19, who's a shooting guard that went and played in Australia this year um, instead of going to college for a one and done.
Huh. Well, we can only tell. Now, give me a 30-second thing on this guy, Terrence Ferguson.
Oh
That you
well,
know of.
Terrence Ferguson at one time was an Alabama commit, and then he committed to Arizona, and then because of academics, I think that's why he decided to go overseas. But he just decided to go. I'm not sure. He's an interesting guy. He's got an interesting personality. Like he's a really sharp kid, and it's always hard when these guys go overseas. You just kind of lose track of them. I
Yeah.
think he's currently 19th. he's definitely a guy that at the combine, which is going on right now, he's the kind of guy that can shoot up boards quick because people see him play against his contemporaries.
Yeah.
But he was a fast riser his senior year of high school. He was kind of a like top 50 or 60 player, and all of a sudden they were talking about him in the lottery. Looked really good in workouts.
Interesting. Well, let's go on to the next guy. Okay, I seem to have made some incredibly terrible handwriting right now. So, center from Indiana.
Yeah,
What is his name? Thomas Bryant?
Thomas Bryant.
Thomas
So,
Bryant.
so Thomas Bryant. The next two guys are both in the same boat in that they would both have been lottery picks last year, and they
Really?
came back and they've lost their value. Now, at least I'm not Nigel Hayes, who was a lottery pick 2 years ago and now probably won't be drafted. So, these when we talk about these guys wanting them to stay in college, I've generally found that more guys drop than go up. First round guys, anyway. But Thomas Bryant is a pretty remarkable athlete in a remarkable frame. He's 6'10", 241 pounds, with a nearly 7'6" wingspan.
That's large.
Which is like Boban Marjanovic type territory here. I mean, he is extremely long. Actually shows really good handle. The challenge for him is he kind of reminds me of Aaron Gordon a little bit, in that what bothers me about Aaron Gordon is he seems to be a guy with everything to be successful in the post, but really prefers to be out in the perimeter. And Bryant isn't super physical. This year he had 12.6 points a game, but he only averaged 6.6 rebounds, which if you're 6'10", 241, you should get that while asleep. So, that was, you'd like to see him having 9 or 10 rebounds, especially when you got a guy like Swanigan in the same league was averaging 12 and a half, So that's a little bit disconcerting, but he did shoot 38% from the 3-point line, and he's an above 70% free throw shooter. So, he's got the game. He seems to have a great work ethic. I think he's he kind of reminds me of a European big. I mean, these European bigs come over with these long wingspans, more of a perimeter game, but he's not nearly as polished as most international guys that come over. So I think he's more of a project. I don't think he's really going to help a team next year. But in 2 to 3 years, he might be an absolute star. And he's really worked on his all-around game. And, he could end up being a stretch forward with some handle that can defend all 5 positions. I'm not saying he'll do that, but I'm saying if he works at it, he's got the physical tools to be really special down the road.
Former top 10, so that's a.
Hey, if you want to pick a guy out that 2 years from now everybody's going, how the heck did he fall to 33 or 34? That's your guy. That's the one that everybody in hindsight will go, wow, how did we miss that? I mean, Draymond Green's already been popular in this podcast. I tend to make comparisons to him way too often. But, Green, everybody's like, how do you fall in the second round? Well, because sometimes we just forget to evaluate guys when they're not 18 years old. And, everybody sees their unlimited potential. So he would be that guy. I'm not comparing his game to Green's; it's very different. But
yeah,
he's the one we'll look back on and go, "Whoa, how did he fall to the second round?"
All right, yeah, this is going to be a fun draft to watch. I feel. So moving on to our last guy. Now, this is a guy I was interested in because I actually had a chance to watch him, but I never made it to the games. But
I remember telling you to go watch him. I remember that.
You did last year, and I should have watched this year, but I again never. Getting to that campus is actually strange because it's actually around where you hear all those Berkeley riots happening and stuff like that. That's in the same area, so. And it's a bunch of hippies doing all this stuff. So it's not like I'm afraid to go down there. It's more as I just don't want to be bothered by people saying, free love, man.
Yeah.
Don't you try our organic Are all organic smoothies, dude. Like it's just I don't want to bother with that.
Yeah.
Man, I was walking onto campus and there was a couple people just walking with a squirrel in their hand, petting them like they were pets. It was crazy. Anywho, anywho, let me go on. We're talking about Ivan. Okay, how do you pronounce his last name? Rob?
I've heard it Rab and Rob, depending on depending on who pronounces it. I've heard Bill Walton say Rob, which means it's probably wrong, but we're going to go with that because it's the most
Okay.
fun to hear him commentate the game.
Now, he was a teammate of Jalen Brown's last year, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So he's a power forward slash center, former top 10 again that you mentioned. And that's all I got. So what am I missing?
Well, he's another guy that um, it's interesting because he was not an elite prospect coming out of high school, and
Yeah.
then he was great last year, and also he seemed to be a lottery pick. Then he kind of his stock did fall out like late lottery, toward the end of the year, and then he decided to come back, which surprised me. And then this year he didn't take a step back. I mean, his shot took a step back. His percentages across the board weren't very good, and he's only shoots 66% from the free throw line, which is bothersome. When one thing you're hoping this guy's gonna be able to do is stretch out the floor a little bit. But he also played with a higher motor. I felt like when he was a freshman, he seemed to be a hungrier player.
Yes.
Now that could also be that the Cal team wasn't very good this year, and that affects people. I mean, I think that's one reason with Thomas Bryant. I mean, Indiana was a tire fire at times this year, so it becomes hard to play, and they also had a lot of selfish guys. So I mean, California wasn't at that level. I mean, they were a good team overall, but I don't think it was exciting as the team the year before. But whatever reason, he just didn't have that. I mean, he kind of reminds me at times of like Kenneth Faried, um, and because he can just be an absolute tenacious rebounder, and he's skinny. What I like skinny guys that like to get physical, because then when they put weight on, they become that more effective. It's easy for big guys to be, but when skinny guys get physical, like that's exciting because you're like that guy likes to compete. And I just didn't see as much of that from this year. And I was limited this year in some of the games I saw, but the stats show that too. So, but I like him, high motor guy, good character kid. The other problem with him that it scares me a little bit is I'm not sure what position he plays exactly. I mean, in that way, he kind of scares me a little bit. Like I loved Derek Williams coming out of college, but I also learned from Derek Williams that he didn't really have a position. Um, and Rab might be a little bit in that boat.
Okay. Okay. Somebody to keep an eye on. Who knows what happens if Atlanta goes with them. But so we're going to move to the last guy before we take a quick break and then come back. But last guy, you didn't mention him, or at least you think he's going to be a lottery pick. Donovan Mitchell out of Louisville, shooting guard.
Yeah,
How's he moved up?
well, he was kind of the talk of the day at the draft combine today. So I already thought that he seemed low rated, um, on a lot of boards, but it seemed like University today, a lot of people moved him into the late lottery. I think Draft Express has him at number 12 now. And the awkward thing about that is, honestly, of these guys, like I like Donovan Mitchell a lot. I don't really know what he would be in Atlanta. He's a shooting guard, 6'3", scored 15 points, 5 rebounds, but he needs the ball. And Atlanta doesn't
Oh.
really want guys that need the ball. So, if you took him, you'd have to be thinking of him almost as a sixth man type guy. Um, and that seems a little high. I just think he would fit better with other systems than ours. So it's almost like a relief to me that a guy like him has moved up, because that's another guy that's kind of like I'm not really big on. I mean, in general, as a player, I just don't think he's perfect for us. And he's kind of advertised as a shooter, but he's not really a great percentage shooter. So that kind of bothers me a little bit.
Huh.
But I
Okay.
really enjoy watching him play basketball.
Oh, I'm less excited now. You killed the mood, which is why
Yeah.
we're gonna go to a break and hear a word from our sponsors. Oh no, we don't have any. Darn. Okay, well, if anybody out there wants to pay us to have give them a commercial, boom, we got it right here. Anyway, we'll be right back, and we will get on to the next part of this. So I'm gonna check my Twitter real quick and see if anybody tweeted me, and I clicked the wrong button. Okay, Twitter. Nobody. Hold on.
So did the Rockets just choke the game to the Spurs?
That's what
Is that what I'm seeing?
That's what I'm trying to find out right now. About the Kawhi. I had to turn the TV off because I was getting distracted because they were getting blown out.
Oh my gosh, this saw the best tweet ever. It says North Korea has better rockets than this.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh, hold on. I'm about to tweet you. I'm about to tweet you a picture I saw Bo retweet. All right. It's a pretty funny picture. Is the game over now, or?
I don't know. Is it a blowout? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, it's okay. 17, 82, 90. It's 114 to 72 with 2 minutes remaining.
Holy mother!
Yeah, I know. That's D'Antoni. Oof. And Trump has now admitted he fired him because of Russian investigation. Interesting.
Wait, what?
No, I was just reading something.
Let's get back to the draft where I start crying.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. Let me. That was the quick break so I could check on the score. All right. Okay, I don't have any questions. So. And we are back. Quick break, but we're back, guys, because we do this for you, for the people. So, Patrick pretty much Coach Red went through a list of guys that we should see around our picks at 19. Now, who would you say of those 6 would you see at 19, and who would you see at 31?
Well, I mean, I think obviously Collins and Kennard are unlikely to be available at 31. Like, we'll be lucky if they're at 19. Swanigan, Bryant. Swanigan's the one that I would be okay with at 19, but could be available at 31. I probably wouldn't be too upset with Bryant at 19, but my guess, and here's my guess. We don't know who the general manager is, but my guess is there's a good chance there's 5 international prospects at this point in time that are kind of like all vying for the second best international player. There's one guy, Frank Intelinka Nika. These names are hard sometimes. That will go top 10. Will be in the top 10. And then the question is, okay, who's the second international player? Well, everybody's got that person usually going like 20, 21, 22. So Atlanta could be a team that would take the second guy. Now, knowing Atlanta's luck, we'll fall in love with some guy, and then he'll go off the board at 18 because that's apparently what happens with us every year. It seems like with these, we barely miss Giannis, we barely miss Dario. So, we'll see. So all that is to say, I see one of these picks, either 19 or 31, being an international player, and then the other one being one of these type of guys.
You know what?
The thing there's not much of in this range is very many college upperclassmen, which has been what we've loved to take in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I kind of stuck on the sophomores a little bit more.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like long wingspan Euro bigs in this range, and I'll be surprised if we didn't take one of them.
You know what's going to happen? Atlanta's going to trade back. So last time Paul Millsap was a free agent, no, never mind. I'm getting my facts mixed up. Never mind. I was going to say, watch Atlanta trades back and eventually like trades their pick for, I don't know, Ben McLemore. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of move though that I would be a fan of. Like, there are so many guys from that draft 2 years ago that teams are kind of like wanting to dump off, it seems like, because they've either gotten too many guys in the same position. And the Tyler Ennis is Tyler Ennis is actually a free agent. Ben McLemore, but that loaded draft, where I think those guys aren't necessarily even bust. They just might have been taken too high, but they're not bust for you if they're an NBA player. So, it wouldn't bother me to see Atlanta use the draft pick to acquire a guy like that that's already that many years in the league if you can get him on the right deal. So, I would say it's 50-50, not knowing who's leading the organization, but that we even pick at 19 and 31. I think it'd be crazy not to use it. The 31 pick is a real asset because that's not guaranteed money. You can take somebody, you can sign them to the contract you think you want to sign them to. I mean, look, we've paid Muscala pennies for how long as a second-round pick?
Yeah.
So you can get someone there that is willing to take a good deal because they want to make sure they're in the NBA, not overseas.
I feel like someone's going to take Muscala, but that again is another free agency contract
right.
conversation we're going to have. So, okay, so
and I also love that we're at 60 too. I mean, I really like that. Having the 31 and 60 are some really cool picks to have. If you can't be in the lottery, those are not too bad places to be.
Get the next Isaiah Thomas
Right.
at 60. Okay, so one question that we do have that we have for us is one, do you see a possibility, do you think, of a trade happening where we would trade a player to move up or anywhere?
Well, if you one of the great things about picks, and actually there's times last year I like this, is if let's say let's say Zach Collins. This has nothing to do with relevant to what I think Atlanta would do or should. But Zach Collins is a 7-footer, probably go 10th or 11th right now. And let's say he falls to 13, and Atlanta's decided they really like him and they think he's a long-term player. You could pair up the Timberwolves first round pick in 19 and probably get up there. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, you collect those assets for a reason, and when you really like players, you should get them. That's why, if Atlanta right now took Swanigan at 19, people would be like, "Oh my gosh, they took him too soon." Well, as long as he's right, that doesn't matter. That's only a problem when it doesn't work. I even made that same with Adrian Payne. Like, the problem with Adrian Payne at 15 was you got to be right when you move up. He was probably I had him like 23rd on my board. You got to be right if you move up that far to take somebody.
There are also a couple of things, I think, not red flags, but when I was reading about his profile, it's kind of like, the whole slow learning thing.
Well, I said that even in praising him, but I said that, if you get Adrian Payne, you got to know that at every level he's played, he's been a slow developer. Heck, Payne's going to be a free agent this year. He might end up somewhere and have a good career, but he's always been the fact is he didn't make threes, and if he didn't make threes, he's a total player.
That too. So also part 2 of this trade question is, if the Hawks were to combine 19, let's say pick 19 and pick 31 and move up, what spot do you think they would be in, and who would you look for around that spot?
Well, supposedly we offered, when Winslow was falling a few years ago, we offered the Timberwolves pick I think I remember this right. The Timberwolves pick and our 15 pick at the time to move up. And then Boston offered like 3 picks and Miami wouldn't move. So I would say 19 and 31 or 19 in the Wolves pick would probably get you around the 10 spot. You know, if I was going to pick a guy that could fall, it might be worth it. It would actually be Frank Nitkalinka, who's a point guard. I can see Atlanta really liking him. I really like him. I actually think I probably of the 5 elite point guards, most people have him as the 5th. I have him as the 3rd.
Now, what makes him special?
Frankly, he's a European player that looks like an American point guard. But you have the advantage that he's been in a European system and not in a coddled system. He's a good athlete, good vision, great ceiling. I just like him a lot. I mean, when you watch him play, he looks like a well coached American player with a little bit more polish than as a point guard. I think that's a guy I could see us moving up for. The other guys that I would think of us moving up for, I just don't think they could drop in such a way. Like maybe like Jason Tatum from Duke. If all of a sudden, for some reason, he was 9th, I don't see that happening. But if he was, I could see us making that move.
Huh.
I mean, you got to realize in the top 20 right now, there's only one upperclassman, Justin Jackson, who I
That's
don't even
unique.
like that much.
That's kind of unique. Okay, well, draft is certainly going to be fun. I'm excited every year for the draft because I don't know what it is about the NBA draft, which to me is the most fun out of all the major sports drafts. But it's like there's drama, and I don't know, something about 5-minute picks make it so much better.
Well, in the NBA,
Opposed to,
I mean, this is the credit for all the criticism Stern gets, but the NBA's learned how to promote themselves and their players at the same time. And I think other
yeah,
leagues find a way to promote the league and somehow denigrate players. And the NBA and Adam Silver was given a great hand was dealt to him when Stern left, but he's played everything perfectly so far. And it's just I don't know. There just seems to be such a positive vibe when the draft rolls around, and the NBA players wear the most ridiculous outfits in the world, and it's wonderful to watch. And
I love it.
I actually heard an idea today that I thought was interesting. There's been a conversation about because these players are not going to the NBA Combine and not working out, that if they don't work out, they don't get to be in the green room at the draft.
Ooh.
Which is like one of the actually most common sense things I've heard in a while.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah, so I kind of like that. Of course, it'd be depressing though when like the only guy in the green room ends up being like the 37th pick of the draft because all the first rounders skip the combine. But
or it's you have a Brandon Jennings situation where he had a run from the hotel to the
yeah.
Oh geez, random things I don't forget. I don't know. The NBA draft combine is not combine. The draft is just so entertaining because you might have, I don't know, some player make out with his girlfriend on the camera, like, or you might see someone and their parents, and then somebody, you get a comment and be like, "Oh,
well, you've always got
second.
You got Calipari walking around like he's just had a newborn child, for each kid, and then which is kind of interesting because this draft isn't loaded with like Kentucky players like normal. So, there's only 2 elite players from Kentucky. So,
Makes it better. So, to wrap up real quick before we get out of here, I understand you have an article that should be out by the time this recording is available to everybody. So, quickly, just go over what to expect in your article.
Well, it's just a more detailed look at the 5 players we've talked about, and there's some great videos in there too to allow people to see. I always like to post videos so people can disagree and say I don't see what you saw. So I tried to give at least one video for every player and see what people think. So I always enjoy people giving comments, and well, I should say I always enjoy most people giving comments. So it'll be good to hear from folks and see what they think about these players. So I'm sure some people will wonder why I didn't have Donovan Mitchell in there, but it was really because I thought he'd end up moving up enough that he'd put off the board by the time we picked. So
Cool. Well, Patrick, it is always an honor and a pleasure for you to come on here. Excuse me, Coach Red. Coach, it is an honor. Thank you, Coach, for just blessing us with your time, for coming on here, and just welcome back. Welcome back. I'm tearing up.
well, it's still good to be a Hawk, Josh.
Really, is it?
It is.
I had difficulty.
It's still going to be a Hawk. It could be worse. You could be a Falcon.
Could be a Thrasher, but that's another. The last bird of Atlanta. Go Thrashers. But anyway, thank you for talking, and everybody, thank you for listening once again. And we'll definitely be back before the draft for all random Hawks news.
Oh, anytime, man.
Draft talk.
Anytime.
Great. Thank you, Patrick.
Sounds good, bud.
Right. We out.